thousands of feet in the air. He just jumps out as far as he can with his bow and his arrow, to which he has affixed a rope.
Right.
And then he turns around and yep, sure enough, there's a tree.
You are listening to And If Love Remains, a unique show spotlighting people, ideas, science, culture, and art. Your host, Mike Lovett.
Rachel, you are correct. This is that great podcast in the sky, And If Love Remains. I am your sometimes virtuous, occasionally vile, always virile host, Mike Lovett. And I am here with two great friends of the program. It's great to have them back. James and Jim, welcome back to the show.
Hey, good to be here, Mike. Thanks for
Always
having
a
us.
It's fun stuff. And last time we were here, we talked about the epic, the greatest movie of all time, the RR of R's. And it was so much fun, and really for me gave me a great appreciation for that cinematic universe of, you know, we'll call it Bollywood as a generic term, but the Indian cinematic flavor, I guess, you know. It's super cool. It's super over the top, and that was just a great intro drug into that universe. It was it was a lot of fun. And so we saw probably the next great movie, one of the great movies of it, which is Baahubali and Duh.
Wow. We're just jumping all over continents, aren't we?
We're mixing all sort of, cultures here. Anyway,
I'm pretty sure the French would hate Baahubali.
I'm sure they would. It's way too optimistic for them. But it was a great movie. It was, again, the same director, right?
Yes.
Same director.
Same director, and I think writing team.
Okay.
Which would be his whole damn family.
So that, that, and yeah, you definitely could see that. I think I don't think it was as well
Paced.
It's a lot of movie.
It is a lot of movie. That's true. I was going to say, RRR is much more refined than Baahubali.
Yeah, there's definitely a progression of skill. You watch Baahubali 1 and 2, then you watch RRR, and you can see he's playing with a lot of the same ideas, and in RRR he has perfected them, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to see what he comes up with next, but yeah, it's definitely really, really good. So let's talk a little bit about Baahubali. Let's talk about, first of all, it's two movies. It's 1 and 2.
Right.
The beginning and the conclusion.
And they're both about 2.5, 3 hours long.
2.5 hours, yeah. We're not going to go over I think it's a spin-off or an animated series.
Yeah, that's right. I haven't seen the animated series, but I have seen stills from it.
Okay. So we're not going to be referencing that.
So Baahubali Part 2, I believe, is still the most popular movie, the most financially successful movie ever in India.
Yeah.
It made more money than Baahubali 1. It made more money, I believe, even now than RRR.
Wow. Well, it was one of the ones when we put out our RRR podcast, a lot of comments were saying you need to check out Baahubali.
Sure.
We had a lot of people saying, if you like that, you're going to love this too,
Right.
Which we did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We did. It was great. I still think RRR is superior, and I could relate to it more. But yeah, it's
Baahubali walked, so Triple R can run.
Who can't relate to a guy who's starved for a month and is doing pull-ups? We've all been there.
We've all been there.
Only to be saved by your best friend, and then you become some kind of mythical four-armed, two-legged beast. Who didn't go through that in college? Am I right? RRR is still by far my favorite. And I have a hard time picking between Baahubali 1 and 2. I think I probably like Baahubali 2 a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I'd be hard pressed to say exactly why. Maybe it's just because it is the conclusion and it kind of wraps things up and
Right.
doesn't leave you hanging for a year.
we were fortunate where we only had to wait a week,
Right.
not a year.
Right.
So that was a good thing about watching it how he did. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of movie. There's a lot going on, and it's very archetypal. I mean, it's very like these characters are archetypes. They're not just like characters that you know. Again, the French would hate it.
This isn't Breaking Bad.
No, this isn't Breaking right. Right. The hair is amazing. Jim, I think one of the best comments Jim had was like, "Man, this is like a shampoo commercial."
Right. Yeah, it's 5 hours of the best hair ever. And every time they get wet, it's like somebody flipped the slow-mo switch.
Right.
You can just hear somebody in the background like Suave shampoo, gives you a full body.
So good. It's so good. All right, so James, why don't you let's talk about Baahubali 1 and give us a quick, and it's not, this won't be a 5-hour podcast. So give us the quick rundown, tell us a story. What should we know to be able to talk about this movie?
Of just the first part?
We'll start with the first one.
So it opens against a giant waterfall, which is going to be very important later. A woman carrying a baby is being hunted. She defeats the hunters, and then she dies, saving the child. The child grows up into a man, and when he sees a mask belonging to a woman that fell from the waterfall, that inspires him, gives him the little extra push that he needs to climb all the way up, which I think is my favorite part of the movie.
Oh, it's a great
that
movie.
whole sequence.
How tall is that waterfall? 3.5 miles?
Absolutely.
At least.
It took him 3 days to get up there.
It's an insanely high waterfall.
This movie is of mythic proportions.
Right. I mean, if you saw the waterfall in Up, like, that's just peanuts.
Right.
It's like part 1 of this waterfall.
That's right.
At the top of the waterfall, he finds the woman that he was looking for, and she is part of a rebel group that is going to take back the kingdom of Mahishmati, which has been wrongfully usurped by, if I can pronounce his name right, Balaldeva. And
if you're listening to this and you know the correct pronunciations, feel free to comment
Feel
below.
free to comment. Yeah. Let us know.
There's so many names, and
Balaldeva.
I think it's Balaldeva.
Balaldeva sounds right to my ear, but what do I know?
Let's see.
Dava for short.
So the main character, who at this point is called Shivudu.
Yeah, Shivudu.
He, hearing that they are going to take back the kingdom because the rightful queen has been chained up, he says, "Your mission is my mission. I will go get her." And then he does. Just walk.
Well, we're not getting into
there.
Right.
That's still the
That's
first
still number
movie.
one. That's
Still all the first movie.
Yeah, you're right.
The bad guy is erecting a giant golden statue which falls over, and then Shivudu just grabs a rope and hoists it straight up.
When he says giant, I mean, we're talking about 100
foot solid gold
statue.
statue.
Yeah.
Just in case you were wondering, like,
This isn't
just how powerful is Shivudu?
This isn't, ooh, I got a 20-foot statue. No.
Oh yeah, because those are light too.
Right.
When he hoists it up, the crowd recognizes him as a character named Baahubali, which makes Balaldeva very angry. Hijinks ensue.
So why would that make him so angry?
Well, that's
part of the
later.
story.
That's late. That's found out later. Okay.
We find out much later. Shivadu grabs Devsena, runs out of the castle, and is pursued by the guards or army of Mahishmati. And they're led by the slave Katapa, and I think also the prince. Because when they attack Shivudu in this very incredible wasteland, if I remember correctly, Shivudu decapitates the prince, and his headless corpse stumbles for a couple more steps before falling over. It is beautiful. And then Katapa, going to avenge the prince, recognizes Shivudu and falls on his knees and tells Shivudu that he is the son of Mahendra Bahubali?
I believe Mahendra Baahubali.
Yeah, Mahendra.
Okay, Mahendra Bahubali. And this is when the whole movie becomes a flashback. And now we start chronologically at the start. And should I go into the chronological beginning, or should we just take it from here?
Let's stop there for a second. Well, I don't know. Maybe we have to. First of all, like, let's talk about like what makes why, as a director, why do you think you made the decision to do this whole like story up front and then do the backstory? I mean, it's,
Because the mystery, I think, is very compelling. If you have the whole story being told chronologically, then you have an interesting build-up, and then lots of exciting things happen, and then you are at the beginning of the first movie, which is another build-up. So we know what is going to happen, or at least where things are going. So if you had the movie told chronologically, it would lose all of its momentum as we're just waiting for Shivadu to catch up with us. But by shifting it around, we're following Shivadu's journey, and we learn
as
with
he
him.
does.
As he does. It would be, I think, as awful as being one of the unfortunate people who were introduced to Star Wars by watching episodes 1, 2, and 3 first.
Right.
And then you watch the original trilogy. There's no suspense.
Yeah.
There's no build-up.
And all of the explanation is just redundant, because we know what the Force is, we know who the Jedi are, we know what a lightsaber is, but we're still waiting 40 minutes for Luke to catch up.
But yeah, I love this. Shivagami?
Shivgami?
Okay. I'll say Shivagami.
Shivagami. Yeah.
You know, when she's introduced to us, we don't have any idea who she is.
Right.
Right? I mean, she's got a lot of jewelry. She's dressed well. She's been through hell.
Yeah.
She's mortally wounded, and continues to fight against her pursuers.
It's a great character introduction.
It is the best character introduction. Like her final. Do we say spoilers? Spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
Lots of spoilers.
Like her
For a
final
6-hour
act,
movie.
right? The culmination of her entire life is to save this child.
Yeah.
Up to the point where it literally means she is, as I said, mortally wounded. She's drowning in the river, and she holds the child up over her head until somebody can rescue it.
It's that part was pretty insane. Like, just all you see is her hand and the baby, and she's just holding it above her head in the water. You know she's dying, and it's really impactful.
And I'm not saying that this is what the filmmakers intended, but I kind of got the sense that there was a bit of the divine intervention going on, because as soon as they grab the child, she is gone.
Right. She's not just, she doesn't just die. She's just like, but basically disappears.
Yeah.
Right.
And the guy was right there. He was expecting to grab onto her and save her, but she's just disappeared. So I kind of feel like she has died, but whatever she was calling out to presented the child to be saved.
That introduction tells you so much about that character, who you don't even know. You don't know her name, you don't know her story. I think you want to. Because who is this person? How did she get in this position? I mean, she went to the we talk about, like, giving it your all.
Right.
Right? But this is a woman who gave absolutely everything, right? Like, down to the last minute, she had no rational reason to expect this child to survive, right? But she gave the child literally every possible second to give perhaps the gods a chance to intervene, right?
Yeah.
To find somebody. And that says so much. I really believe that in a movie full of just intense and really remarkable characters. I mean, she's definitely one of my favorite, maybe top 3, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it also is one of the themes of the movies that is told right there is this idea of hope. Like in the midst of obviously there's something going on that's like the people, there's a lot of chaos going on. You're not sure what yet, but this baby somehow symbolizes the hope of the future. And we don't even know what it is yet, but it's,
Yeah, that whole scene with the golden statue, Shivudu's appearance makes them chant Bahubali's name and gives them the strength to lift the statue up. And even though it is a statue for Balaldeva, as the movie literally shows us, Bahubali's strength and popularity still towers over Balaldeva's, even though he is dead.
Yeah.
Because-
That scene just made me think of like how great the Indians do villains too. I mean, even though they're not English, like
Where were the British evil people?
right? They even do pretty evil Indians, I guess. Because I mean, if I remember right, I mean, as that statue is falling, they're like, "Oh, what are a few peasants going to be
Right,
smashed?"
A sacrifice of 100 heads.
Right.
Right.
Balaldeva. In this moment, Shivudu is not interested in saving the statue.
Right.
It's the people under the statue,
Right.
obviously, that he's saving. But I had said something before the podcast. I mean, the Shivudu is, in many ways, he is Clark Kent delivered to Smallville by mysterious means.
Right.
He is this demigod living among the people there, I'm not saying that they worship him as a demigod or anything like that, but
what he accomplishes.
He's clearly above and beyond, right?
Oh, for sure.
He's uncontrollable.
He's lifting stones, and,
Right.
he's doing all these crazy things that people are just like, they're in awe of and expecting at the same time.
Right. Right. And his I guess what Confucius would call his filial piety to his mother. He keeps trying to climb the waterfall, right? I think he honestly, as a child, he just climbs it because it's there.
Right.
And because there are very few challenges to this demigod from Krypton. I mean, from Bahubali, Mahishmati. So he needs this, right? And he climbs, and the villagers are. I don't see them placing bets, but I kind of imagine placing bets. He's gonna make it as far as the tree,
right?
50 shells, whatever it is, whatever they use there. I don't know. But she's pouring water over. I think it's the Shiva Linga, the Shiva stone, the lingam, to pray that he will give it up. He knows that she's praying for him to
stop it.
To stop,
right?
And I think he knows he's not gonna stop,
right?
But he carries this stone that is obviously no human could lift this thing, right? And he carries it all the way under the waterfall so that it will be perpetually doused with water. So her prayers will be basically infinite.
Yeah.
Right? An ongoing. She never has
She
to
doesn't
carry
have to keep
water
walking
again.
up and down that stone.
You know, this is his character. This is his innate character, right? He loves his mother. He's loyal, but he's also adventurous. He's strong, and he's not going to be held back.
And there is a real supernatural thing to it where he is. It's not just like I think you're right. You know, at some point that may be the only challenge that he has, but he's also called to climb that waterfall. Like there are some things that happen both in the climb and I think before the climb where he's just like, I got to keep going.
And there's a great little storytelling thing going on there and movie making, because that scene feels very, shall we say, extra. It doesn't seem very important to anything. It just seems very grandiose and kind of, this is a strong guy. But when he puts the stone under the waterfall and celebrates his achievement, that's when the mask falls down, and that's what kicks off the rest of his journey. Right. So
that really sparks the curiosity.
Almost ironically, if she hadn't been praying about that mask would have just floated down the river, and he never would have.
The solution you were looking for was lying within the problem.
That climb is
fantastic.
Like,
in the sense of the word.
Yeah, I would be extremely disappointed to find out 10 or 15 years from now that people are teaching cinema in the film schools and they don't spend at least a week on the waterfall in Baahubali. Yeah. Besides being beautiful, Rajamouli he knows how to get a shot. He knows how to frame a shot. I think I read somewhere that they had something like 1,500 concept sketches written for this. Wow. And I would buy that
thing,
book.
or just his little dance sequence.
I would believe it. But much like RRR, like every shot feels intentional. Every shot is beautifully composed. But that climb, he's been trying to climb for 20 years.
Yeah.
Getting stronger. But
I think he's about 22 when he finally makes it, because there was like Mahendra Baahubali died at 22, and then Shivadu returns also at 22. So I think that's the symmetry there. So
that climb is just just wonderful. It's symbolic, but it's physical, and
there. My son Matthew made this comment. I think he did. I think it was him. Anyway, he made this comment to me. He was talking about the newest Spider-Man movie, where he was talking about how beautiful it is and how like you could take any frame of it and that could be a poster
for sure.
And that's the same thing with that waterfall climb. Like you could take any frame of that and it could be the poster for Baahubali, because it's just gorgeous,
right?
And well
actually
thought
on
out.
That thought, if you pick your frames right, it could be a poster for whatever kind of movie you want, because there's a lot of emotional beats in that.
There are.
He's on the edge of the cliff and it's very tense, and he's swinging through this jungle that just lives inside of the mountain, and it's an adventure. And then he's relaxing on the side with the sunset in the background, and it's a feel-good movie. It's so much range in that sequence.
Do we know? Because I'm not clear. Who was the woman that he saw? I know she wasn't
on the waterfall?
She wasn't physical. Yes, the woman that he saw that finally inspired him to take that. To succeed in that leap.
It was the face of the woman in the mask that he eventually meets, but
who was she? Was she the river goddess?
Maybe taking on that. What's her name?
What did we decide her name was?
Avantika?
Yeah, something like that.
Avantika?
It might have been a
Hang on, I got
spirit
it written
taking
down somewhere.
Avantika's forms to motivate
I
him.
thought it was a some
Yeah,
sort of
Avantika.
representation of her. Mm-hmm. But
Well, yeah, it was her face for sure, but obviously she wasn't astral projecting,
right.
right? Because she didn't know him.
Yeah.
But I mean that obviously the whole climb is gorgeous, right? That one spot where he's constantly jumping and falling short until her face motivates him to jump the extra mile, as it were, right? And
I mean, this is a crazy movie, but that is a metaphorical mile. We'll get to the literal miles later.
that's just great. And then as he nears the top,
I mean,
the
what
most epic leap of faith. I wish my English vocabulary was stronger. But he just takes this fantastic literal leap of faith, right? It's faith in his destiny, it's faith in himself, because he sees this tree, but I mean it's up and kind of on an overhang, right? It's kind of like what the rock climbers would call a negative angle, right?
Yeah, all you could have seen from his angle of ascent would have been the leaves. So he's just sure there's a tree, and he's just sure this is going to work.
Right. So he just jumps as far as he can off of this waterfall, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of feet high, right? Thousands of feet in the air. He just jumps out as far as he can with his bow and his arrow, to which he has affixed a thread, a rope.
Right.
And then he turns around and yep, sure enough, there's a tree. Good thing. Right. And he, I mean,
Summons all of his.
he totally believes
crossing
that
cultures
he's
again,
going to
but
be
it's
cool, man.
chi power to get that arrow through.
Right?
Yeah. It is interesting. Like, it's one of those moments where I wouldn't say, because you're still cognizant that it's a movie, and you're still cognizant of like how long this movie is and stuff like that. And so, like, you don't think he's gonna die, but you are sure, like, whoa, that's a cool way to get out of that.
Right. Earlier in the sequence,
pretty.
he is flat up against the wall, walking along this thin little ridge, and he comes up against this bulge in the wall, and he's got his back to it. He's just trying to stay flat as he can, and honestly, as a first-time viewer, it just looks like he's going to have a moment of tension, and then he's going to swing around, and then he's going to keep on climbing, but at least it surprised me, he falls. He absolutely falls, and if it wasn't for the forest and maybe whatever spirit is guiding him, certainly if it wasn't for his destiny, all of his progress and perhaps life would have been lost.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, I would have died.
Yeah.
So seeing that definitely sets you up for when he takes that leap of faith, because you have seen him fail before doing this kind of thing.
Right. But like, this is when he does that leap of faith, like he's at the point of no return.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing gonna save him.
Yeah.
Right.
If that
Yeah, no,
arrow
there's no
doesn't
way.
work, you are gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Can't even see the forest anymore.
No,
the
when
trees
he
or otherwise.
when he hit the bottom, it would just be pieces of him floating down the river.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he makes it, and it's awesome, and it's just, I mean, I think I saw somewhere someone said like Baahubali is a great Star Wars movie. And I think it would be an amazing Star Wars movie. I think much like RRR, it is a fantastic superhero movie.
Yeah.
Like when you read Tolkien, you don't really think of like the elves. I mean, they're kind of superhuman, but they're not really. You don't think of them that way, right?
Yeah, because as their own thing, they follow a different set of rules. So we're not as impressed by, yes, the elves can do this thing perfectly. Of course they can. They're elves. That's what they do.
But they also aren't like leaping from tall buildings, and there's certain things that they can do well, and they live forever, but they don't, like, You know, they're they're not lifting like boulders over their heads,
Right.
and, you know.
I don't know. It's just, I think you could take Rajamali and put any of his stories into a Star Wars universe, into a Marvel or DC universe.
Yeah.
Not that I would necessarily suggest that he do
Right.
that.
No, because he is doing great.
Yeah, he's doing fantastic, because what he is doing is he's giving us something that, at least in the U.S., we don't get.
We don't have. Yeah.
We don't get.
And
you know?
let's talk about that for a second. Like, what are some of the themes, or what are some of the aspects of this movie, in your mind that we don't get here in the U.S. right now? Like, I'll say one thing. Like, it's same with RRR. Like, the idea of femininity and masculinity is clear, and you know, you see both sides of both sides, and like you see
Right.
the good and the bad of the femininity, masculinity on all. Like, but it is clear, these people have roles that they're playing out, that, you know, I think are super clear and super useful, that we just, you know, everything's kind of gray today.
On a surface level, people are going to see clips from the movies and they say over the top action and this kind of silliness. But we do have very silly over the top action movies. That's what the Fast and the Furious franchise has become.
Oh, sure.
That's what a lot of the Marvel stuff is. They're just pushing these weirder and weirder ideas, but at least with the Rajamali movies, his movies have lots of heart first, and there's an emotional justification for all of the wild, over-the-top feats that they do, because when Beam smacks a guy with a motorcycle, I've seen everything that he's been through, and it has been hell to get there. So it is so cathartic to see him absolutely winning. But when Dominic Toretto guns the engine real good and pulls a helicopter down, yeah, that's what he does. Again, this isn't special. This isn't a great win moment. This isn't a game changer. This is just what happens in these things.
I think the heart, yeah,
It's
Rajamouli's.
absolutely.
I mean, this isn't. If we count Baahubali as one movie, I think I've only seen 3 Rajamouli movies. I've seen, obviously, RRR, I've seen Baahubali, and we've seen Iga.
Right.
And Iga is very different.
Yeah.
Right?
But it has, yeah.
But it's got a lot of heart.
It's got that same, yeah.
It's got a lot of heart. Again, I read somewhere someone talking about how revenge is a constant theme in Rajamouli. And it's like,
That's an aspect, but
I mean, it's definitely in Baahubali.
Right.
It's definitely a theme in Iga.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into RRR territory, but I really don't think there's a lot of revenge in that particular movie. But anyway, there's a lot of heart. There's a lot of great stories. And you really like the characters. The Sivagami character who we're introduced to, saving the hero, right?
Yeah.
Wow, you see every aspect of not just femininity but humanity in her character, man. She is smart.
Mm-hmm.
She is conniving. She is vicious. She is maternal and loving and caring. I mean, literally when we first see her with Baahubali, and I honestly don't, I guess it's the second half of the first movie when we first see her. Like, she has put down a rebellion. She has quashed her husband's desire to rise to the throne.
Right.
Right? She didn't divorce him. She didn't kill him. She just
usurped.
pulled the rug right out from under him. She absolutely usurped him.
Yep.
Right? His presumed role. And she's still got blood on her face, and then she takes her son and her now adopted son and starts breastfeeding them.
Right.
Like, my God. Is there any way to show the two polarities of this woman's character in one frame that would be better than She's bloodstained and breastfeeding. I mean,
Yeah.
That sounds like an album.
right? Bloodstained and breastfeeding by the Shivalingams. Anyway,
No, that's exactly right, though.
right. And so her character is deep and she's complex, and she could give Machiavelli lessons, right, on statesmanship and craftsmanship. She makes mistakes. She makes mistakes from her own hubris,
Right.
and she also has moments of incredible giving, of self-sacrifice, of trying to do the right thing.
And
And she's not a puppet. She's not cardboard cutout. And all of the characters are, I feel like, pretty well fleshed out.
Yeah.
Right?
by the time that she gets like tricked and taken advantage of, those guys have had to go through so many hoops and hurdles to make this one thing work in their favor.
Yeah. I think she might be the most complex. Katapa is
He's
a very
interesting.
complex character too. But as much as you root for Shivadu or Baahubali, they're the same. I mean, there are not a lot of complexities,
Right.
right? These guys are the archetype of
They're
hero,
good.
right?
Yeah.
They are good. They are they are
They are brave.
this should get
honest.
you some comments from your Indian listeners. They are very much like the Judeo-Christian male archetype, right?
Yeah.
They are self-sacrificing when they need to be self-sacrificing. They are out to conquer the world, not necessarily in a warlike way, right? But why does he keep climbing that damn waterfall? Because it's there. He wants to know what's at the top of that. He wants to explore and command his world. And I'm absolutely sure that reflects archetypes in the Bhagavad Gita and some other stories, ancient stories.
Right.
But from my perspective, this is where I'm coming from, and they feel very much like the Judeo-Christian, I guess, ideals of masculinity, right?
Yeah.
Not do men have to get called to fight? Yes, they do. And what do they fight? They fight evil.
Right. And they fight for
And they
their
fight-
families, their country, their,
Right, they fight for good.
Right.
They fight to preserve what is good, and usually that's their family or their tribe or their
Right.
land or whatever. So Baahubali is a great guy. His son is a great guy. Love to hang out with him.
Yep.
Right? I'd feel constantly like chastened by their fine example of manliness.
Right.
If
He
I
just
did
runs
hang
his
out
finger
with them.
through his mustache.
Right. As he runs his fingers through his mustache. Exactly. It's so luxurious. But Shivagami is complex.
Yeah, she really is.
Yeah.
And I love the point you do make. Like, she does, like, clearly makes mistakes, and she pays for those mistakes
Dearly.
Yeah.
deeply. Yeah. But she's also like the arc stone. She's like the thing that the whole kind of story revolves around too.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of both the instigator and the reason. That
Yeah, if she had made different choices, those choices would have changed the whole
Right.
story. Because as much as the other characters are influencing events, she made a lot of bad calls.
But she also made a lot of good ones. Like she was right to choose. Like, she's the one who chose who was going to rule the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And she made the right choice ultimately, even though it didn't go over well within the family.
Right. Well, that's an example, perhaps, of her her compassion or her mercy overwhelming her good sense.
Yeah.
Right? Because there is no doubt that if there was a scorpion in her house, it was in the form of her own husband and or son. right?
Right.
Actually, there's a moment, if you'll recall, where we're learning about young Bahubali, right? And, how did this demigod come to be? And they're praying. Is it the sun god? The altar of the sun god?
I
Or
don't remember.
or was it Shiva?
Because it was a very quick moment in a whole lot of other
Shiva
things.
keeps coming up, but I don't think it was Shiva. I think it was the sun god, because that city, basically, sun god is their deity, right?
But they're praying, yeah.
And then there's a scorpion, right? And the scorpion, and it's not a throwaway scene, right? But it's also not just, oh, look how brave the boy is, right? Because he could have stopped that scorpion. He could have crushed it, which he didn't. He could have grabbed it and let his mom know, whoa, there was a scorpion, but he didn't, right? He grabbed it, and it stung him, and he just sucked it up until they left, and then he chucked it away, right? Still didn't kill it.
And sucks the poison out.
Sucks the poison out, but he never tells his mom or his brother what he did, right? He knows that he did the right thing, and that's enough. The whole, what is it? Virtue is its own reward.
Right.
Right? I mean, also no good deed goes unpunished.
There's a lot of that in this.
And I think that kind of foreshadows like his attempts to protect the kingdom, perhaps from his brother.
Keeps on hurting things and him, and he doesn't.
He just keeps accepting it. And his brother betrays him. There's one time when his brother absolutely betrayed him, and he didn't know about it. He just couldn't conceive of it. But also when they were attacked by the the barbarian hordes. I don't remember the name of that tribe / whatever.
I'll look it up.
But they've got some kind of a totem. It might be a scorpion, right? It's got a big skull that's maybe a giant baboon skull or something. It's too small to be an elephant, and then it's got a bunch of bones, and it's like it's 8-legged, but a scorpion is 8-legged just like a spider is. But let's go with arachnid, right?
Right.
And he definitely is trying to protect the kingdom from that particular poison as well, right? And again, not that his brother wasn't trying it, but his brother was doing it so that he could be king. And Bahubali was doing it so that there would be a kingdom left.
Yeah, there's a big, motivation's a big theme too in this. With a, doing the right thing for the right reason. Yeah, where do your loyalties lie,
And Katapa's loyalty to...
Well, it's
a horrible
do we want to talk about Katapa? Because...
Yeah, that's...
I feel like...
Remember, spoilers.
Right.
Yes.
So this has to span both movies, right? But he's a loyal slave, right? He first we're introduced to him, obviously, when he's chasing Shivadu, but
we get that. His first moment in the movie is when he's having a sword fight with the sword seller. And that's where we explain that he is a slave, but he's also the leader of the armed forces.
That's right.
And how he and his whole family have promised servitude to the throne of Mahishmati above all else.
So no matter who sits on that throne, he will be loyal to them, right?
Right.
And he is, again, if he's one of my favorite characters. I would honestly probably put him and Shivagami as 1 and 2 as far as my favorite characters, and I don't know which is which. Because it just depends on my mood.
Right.
But I mean, the man is loyal, the man is honest, the man is strong, he is dedicated. He is legitimately moved when young Bahubali comes to sit with him, and he's like, oh, I don't like to sit up there. I'm going to sit down with you guys. And he's like, no, you're the king. You should go sit up there. He says, well, if I'm the king, then I command you to feed me. Right. So, I mean, that moves him, right? And he loves this guy.
And calls him uncle.
And calls him uncle.
And that's a big
there's
thing.
The whole thing, right, where, again, spoilers and jumping into probably the next movie. I don't remember, honestly. No, it's not. It's still in the first movie, but whatever.
Cliffhangers.
But
Right.
basically, you know, we discovered that when Baahubali takes a wife and they're going to have a baby, and since she doesn't have a father, they're going to give Katapa the
first hold.
yeah,
The first embrace.
hold him first. He basically is being elevated to father status.
Yeah.
Even though by that time Baahubali has been demoted to, you know,
Captain
peon
of the guard, I
status.
Right.
I don't know what he is.
Yeah, but
I mean, basically, he's Clark Kent, right?
Right.
Just like his son. I mean, he's in this case he's Kal-El or Jor-El, you know, living in the Great Kingdom,
because nobody likes him.
but because nobody likes it. Well, the people who rule don't like it. But anyway, but the first movie ends with the revelation that Baahubali was killed by Katapa.
Right.
Because why? You don't know for a year.
Right.
Which I think is a masterclass in marketing, storytelling,
Right.
and
Right.
definitely, I think, the reason that the second movie made so much
Absolutely.
money. Because that Baahubali 1 comes out in theaters. Everyone loves it, and that cliffhanger means they're coming back. They rent it on DVD and video.
They
Probably
show it
not
to their
video.
friends. They won't stop talking about it.
Everybody sees that
has to
cliffhanger.
go see it now.
And then as soon as those doors open, we are there.
Right. So here's my thing. He's loyal, quite literally, to a fault, right? But he's loyal to the wrong thing.
Right.
He's his father, like he's honoring his father by remaining a slave to whoever sits on the throne.
He
But-
is offered his freedom a couple. Definitely, when the sword man encounters him, he says, "Whatever it takes, I will pay 100 times that to buy your freedom."
Right.
And he turns it down.
But to be fair, by that point, he's still the guardian of what was her name? Devsena.
Yeah.
Devsena. Shivadu's mother. Right? He's still her guardian.
Right.
And he's still in his heart loyal to her, right? But by honoring his father in this way and honoring his ancestors in this way, he has given up his responsibility to resist evil. You know?
Yeah.
Yes, he's honest as much as he can be, right? But it is his responsibility as a rational human being to resist tyranny.
Right.
And okay, he's a slave. He was born into a society where slavery exists.
But then he
But
is
even
ordered
a
to
slave,
kill the good man.
even a slave knows the difference between good and bad.
Yeah.
Right? And he knew it was wrong. He didn't want to do it.
Yep.
He should not have done it. He should have killed
Balaldeva.
Balaldeva, right?
Absolutely.
Maleficent.
Maleficent.
Whatever, right? He is clearly evil. He's a slave in a position to know the machinations that have gone on.
Right. And he's smart enough to know.
He's definitely smart enough to put the pieces together.
Yep.
He absolutely has a moral responsibility from my perspective. And this also should get you plenty of comments from your Indian listeners
Yeah.
about how ignorant I am about, why he did what he did. But he put it in the comments. He
Please,
has
yeah.
a moral responsibility to resist evil. And because that evil was coming from the throne, he didn't do it. And it brought him a lifetime of pain. 22 years of pain. And not just himself, right? He brought it down on the entire kingdom.
That's right.
It caused the death of his beloved queen. Caused the enslavement of the woman who should have been queen. And for all he knew, the death of
The rightful
rightful king.
Right.
Right? So all of these things came from his loyalty to the wrong idea.
I think that is such a beautiful point, and that is definitely a theme that we can look at today. I mean, that's definitely something that we can say, what are we loyal to, in our own lives that maybe, as Stephen Covey might say, it's up the wrong ladder. The ladder's leaning against the wrong wall.
Right.
Where do our loyalties lie? Because you're exactly right. Like it would have been difficult.
Serve for everything that it asks, but is it asking the right thing for the right reasons? Mm-hmm.
Right.
I love his character.
It's great.
I love it. I don't know anything about that actor, but I will probably, if I can find more stuff that he's in, I want to see it.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's just amazing. I think. He's a great character, who made a horrible decision based on, I guess, tradition.
Yeah.
Right? And if you want to honor your father who made this, or your father in the figurative sense, because I'm sure it was his great-great-grandfather, who swore fealty to the throne. Right? Essentially enslaving all future generations. I mean, I'm an American.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the father deciding the fate of the children and the future generations, for good or for ill. I believe in fathers doing the best for their family, and trying to provide for them, trying to give them opportunities, trying to give them even guidance.
And trying to make the best decisions for themselves and their families at that time.
Right. But you should never be limited by what your father, grandfather, great-great-grandfather believed, right? You should never be limited by their place in society. Much less should my 4 times great-grandfather who I never met have the right to enslave me.
Right.
And
someone that he never met.
And I get it, right? Katapa, he was raised with this. His literally probably his grandfather and his father raised him, setting the example. The throne is the god.
Yep.
Right. Which Bahubali's brother, what's his name? Balaldeva. He literally was making himself a god. I mean, he was raising that golden statue in place of the sun god.
Yep.
Right. He was trying to make himself the deity of the kingdom.
Right.
But if he instead had chosen to honor his father by resisting evil, by saying, you swore loyalty to a man or a regime or a family that represented these things, and those things have been corrupted, those things have been usurped, they've been removed, they've been perverted. I think that would have been the better way to honor his family's legacy. He didn't, and therefore
now we have a great story.
Right. Now we have a great story, right, about a flawed man.
It's interesting when he is told to kill Baahubali, if I remember all of the details correctly, he does initially refuse and tells the queen that because he is unwilling to do this, she may now kill him. And then she says something to the effect of, would you have the queen's hands have your blood on them? And then, no, of course. And then he does what he was told to
but
do.
he does evil in the service of evil to protect somebody else from being in some way stained.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it is, he knows, he so strongly knows that this is not the right thing to do, but he is compelled by a sense of loyalty and honor and something to just do it anyway.
But there were 2 people in the room when he was commanded to kill Baahubali whom he could have killed, should have killed. Maybe he would have been himself executed for it. But he would have
saved the kingdom.
He would have saved the kingdom. He would have prevented the queen from being disgraced or whatever.
Right.
So, I mean, that's my take on it. I love the character. I think his tragic flaw is in his insistence on holding to a tradition that keeps him enslaved to a position that is no longer it's no longer a force for good.
Yeah.
It's a force for evil. It's tyrannical, and it's his job as a rational man to resist it. But he doesn't do that because he feels that it's more important for him to honor the commitments made by his long dead ancestors. And that's, that is what it is. And he's a fantastic character. I think that's a good lesson. Personally, I think that's a good lesson to take, is like, because he's a good man who chose to serve evil, he ended up doing evil. He ended up causing even greater evil. Would it have been wrong for him to slaughter the king and the king's father? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't
think so.
I don't think
Not
so.
after everything that he knew they were up to.
Right.
Right.
It would have been
For
against
years.
his
Well, that's-
upbringing. It would have
Well,
been.
yeah, there's a difference between doing something that's moral and doing something that's against the law.
Right.
Like against the code, we'll say.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt slaughtering the king is against the law.
Right.
Pretty much everywhere. God, could you imagine a kingdom where that's not the case?
France.
That sounds like a wonderful place, actually.
I don't know, not if it's France. They got a little carried away. But anyway, there was no doubt that it would have been against the law, but it would have been the right thing to do.
It would have been the right thing to do. All right, well, we are about an hour into this show, and we haven't talked about part 2 yet.
Not in so many words.
Let's talk about part 2.
Okay, part 2. Well, we're still in a flashback, technically.
Right.
Where we explain the betrayal of Baahubali. Baahubali goes to a neighboring kingdom. I don't remember. I think it was just to see the citizens that he will be ruling over or interacting with of the neighboring kingdoms. I don't think it was specifically to find a wife, but that's what ends up happening.
Wasn't that part of his quest to capture the traitor? The guy who stole military secrets.
Yeah.
And ran away, because I think that's what set them on the journey.
I don't think so, because the guy that stole the military secrets, they traced him to the bar.
Right.
They chased him off of the cliff, and that's when Balal Deva revealed that he absolutely would have let Baahubali die if it
Right.
wasn't for witnesses. And then those military secrets led the revelation of those secrets and that guy's loyalties led to the final battle of part 1, where they fight against the Kalalakaya?
The barbarian horde.
Yeah.
Them.
Yeah. We'll just call them the Visigoths. Shall we?
So that's what that whole arc was.
Isn't
And then
it
this
weird
was
how those across cultures, just the same things
the same-
keep happening.
Yeah.
You raise up an empire or a kingdom or whatever, and then at the height of its beauty, it gets corrupted from the inside, and then it gets attacked from the outside.
But I know
It
it's
just
like
keeps
it's
happening.
Like, it keeps happening, and it's amazing to like watch it in real time now.
It's a little disturbing.
Yeah.
So he goes to that one kingdom. They get attacked by bandits, and that's when he sees, for this movie anyway, shampoo commercial number 1 of Devsena absolutely slaughtering a whole bunch of those bandits, and then he has an excellent fight scene against the bandits with Katapa, where he is absolutely infatuated with Devsena, and he's killing these bandits without a care in the world.
It's the most like rom-com-ish. It's this weird rom-com like excursion, right? It's like,
But it's still an action fantasy movie.
It's
We're
an
not
action
sacrificing
fantasy
anything.
rom-com.
It is only additive. So that's when
It's Mr. and Mrs. Smith meets.
Right?
the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Right.
So he and Katapag don't exactly go undercover, but they present themselves as being less than they are to woo her over without power, as it were. Like, she's going to fall in love with him for who he is and not because he is
Sure, we'll
the
go with
heir
that
apparent.
interpretation. Because
Right.
honestly, I'm watching and I'm like, I don't know what he hopes to accomplish with this.
It doesn't make a lick of sense,
No.
I think, because he is definitely playing this simpleton role, which is weird.
Yeah, it is quite.
I do
strange.
like how he took the coward of the kingdom,
Oh,
the
yes,
the
that
pretender.
guy's name. What's his name?
I don't
I'm
remember
looking
his
that up.
name, but he's this pretender, right? He's got position, and he acts like he can hunt and he can fight, and he can do neither.
Right.
He's a coward, but by just being around Baahubali and being like encouraged by him, he becomes the hero that he always wanted to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that arc alone is a whole movie,
Yeah.
right? That just whatever that guy's name is, right? I don't know.
Kumara Varma.
But he gets his own hero's journey, and then we're introduced to him, and he's kind of hiding, right? Not fighting. And then by the end of the movie, like, he is badass number one,
Right.
right? He's tough and he's courageous and he believes in himself and with good reason. Baahubali also and Shivadu also believe in themselves with good reason. Like,
Right.
there has never been a man with that kind of self-confidence.
No.
Not that survived past 15.
Right.
No way. You have to get stone drunk to start having that kind of confidence. And by that time, it's too late.
Right.
Actually, the arc of Kumara might be an interesting way to analyze this section of it. So we might start with that. So Kumara
Okay.
he's trying to show the simpleton how to do these things, and Baahubali, being him, just does this and credits all of it to him. So, oh yes, I am a great warrior. I don't know how I did that, but I'm sure I did. And then when one of the armies attacks that kingdom, which I can't remember the name of, and I couldn't, there's so many names.
Yeah.
But they attack the kingdom, and Baahubali just throws off the guys and tells this guy there comes a time in everyone's life, this is your time, step up. And the guy actually does. He protects a bunch of women from a bunch of the invading soldiers and gets hurt.
With a dagger,
With a
wasn't
dagger.
it?
With a
Just
dagger.
hands him a dagger. It's like there's 100 horde outside with swords and arrows. Here's a knife. I gotta go.
I believe in you. And that's his first, if I remember, that's his first moment of really being truly a hero.
Yeah.
And he suffers a lot of injury for it, but he does do it.
And he becomes loyal to the man who helped him find that
Absolutely.
within himself. Which wouldn't it be a nice world if that were always the case?
Right.
So Baahubali does an incredible tactic of getting a whole bunch of, what are they? The animals? Some kind of cow.
Yeah. Are they water buffalo?
Maybe they're water buffalo.
Sure.
We're just going to get a whole herd of them, light their horns on fire, and get them to run in front of the gates. And that ought to keep the enemies away for about a couple minutes. Long enough for us to figure something else out.
Yeah. It was like the stampede from the Lion King meets
Right.
the Rundown. If you haven't seen the Rundown, you should go see it.
That's a good movie.
Plus fire. It's like,
Fire's always fun.
I know, right? When you add like flaming bulls, it sounds like a bar in San Francisco, but flaming bulls just charging the bad guys. I feel like that was pretty awesome.
I totally forgot there's a whole political betrayal thing
Nah,
going on.
we don't have to do that, all that blow by blow stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
You guys, by the way, you need to see, even with the spoilers we're giving, like,
There's
it's not
so
doing
much.
justice.
Oh, well,
you
sure.
need to see the movie.
We're not even trying to describe just the pure
Right.
visual beauty.
I mean,
of it,
honestly,
right?
we're just trying to say enough to be able to, like, talk about it.
Right, and the themes, because there's a lot going on in there, right? And for me, the themes are a big part of it.
Yeah.
The characters themselves are a big part of
Yep.
it. I mean, the story is good.
Fascinating.
You know, it's amazing.
But so and I don't know this. Was the story written by the director, or is it
I don't remember if it was written by him or his dad. But
Is it based
It's not
on
a traditional story. It's
Okay.
obviously informed by
Sure.
traditional stories. There's a lot of, and that would be another hour
Yeah.
of you and me and Wikipedia makes three, figuring out. But it's obviously informed by a lot of stories, not just I think Hindu stories, but just stories that predate
Yeah.
religion or modern religions anyway. So yeah, it's an original story that has a lot of epic themes. It's kind of like, you know, if you Macbeth and King
Right.
Lear, right? I feel like there's elements of King Lear in here. Maybe Macbeth. I mean, there's an evil uncle, and
For sure. Yeah. I mean,
there's some stuff. there's no witches that I remember,
no, I don't remember.
but you
You
know,
just got to expand your definitions and ideas
Right.
of these.
But anyway,
characters.
yeah, there's a lot of beautiful stuff. The music is
Music is
is
really good.
Really
amazing,
The
right?
music is amazing.
I hear some of that music coming from the bathroom in my house fairly regularly. I have one of the few households,
That
I
sounds like a
think,
dystomism.
where you know, at any given moment while the shower is running, you might hear a song in Telugu being belted out. You might hear Russian reggae being belted out. You might hear the song of the mariachi in Spanish, and it's all the same guy doing. But you know, whatever. There's a lot of really great.
The music is
great
fantastic.
music.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And as you said, like the cinematography is just
Oh yeah, like they're going from her kingdom to Mahishmati on this flying boat, and I don't know if this is supposed to be
right.
like
Is this
emotional
metaphorical?
metaphor, or if they just have a boat that flies.
Does it fly now? Well, there's a whole like song and dance
Yeah.
going on, right?
Yeah.
So we really don't know if
Like
it's
Baahubali and Kathapa definitely walked here, so we could have just taken a chariot, but no.
right. He could have flown the eagles to Mordor, right?
We're just gonna fly this thing above the clouds, and there's this beautiful shot where like Baahubali and Devsana are on a staircase, but it's all tilted, and the moon's in the background, so it looks like this weird comic book panel, but it's so cool.
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, who knows, right? It's fantasy. There's a lot of song and dance, especially with the two of them.
Right.
There's at least two major musical numbers.
Yeah.
Just
In
with
one
that
or
bit.
two or both, or
Well, just with Devsana and Baahubali, right?
Yeah.
There's the one in the village where he like sees her, not the village, but whatever,
in
right?
the
She's in
kingdom
her
where she's, like,
she's
singing the
in
lullaby.
her epic quarters, right?
Right.
I guess she's a princess, so fine, you know, she's got like a 25,000 square foot apartment. And they're doing, you know, dancing and singing about him, really.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole dance and song
sky.
sequence while he's flying,
flying
through
through
on the boat. Why not? Sure. And there's the whole thing, like all of that, even, you know, and there's all of the subterfuge and the different plot lines with, you know, his brother and his evil uncle.
Yeah.
there's a lot of politic going on.
There is, but it
And
never
actually-
feels bogged down. Like, I love Star Trek. Sometimes there's too many people sitting around a table
Right.
talking about politics that aren't real.
Right.
You know?
Ooh, lore.
Of course, Dune has an awful lot of politics as well, but it doesn't.
But
You're never
It's
sitting around a
taking-
table.
No.
it's always taking action on the politics.
and
it's not
and-
the Harkonnens deviously committing
Right.
tax fraud and framing the Atreides. It's we are going to come down here, now that we have isolated you from the universe and kill you all.
So play the And If Love Remains home game.
Right.
Write down all of the references to movies that aren't the movie we're talking about. And if you get them all,
well, you'll get a prize.
you'll get a high five virtually. I guess.
We'll make you a guest.
There you go.
Can we pin comments on this? We'll just give you top comments.
Sure. We'll
There
give
you
you
go. Why not?
top comment.
Why not? But I mean, there's a lot of the intrigue,
Yeah,
right?
everything that goes on in the politics directly affects something immediately.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Like even Baldeva sends a letter and tricks the queen into getting the girl that Bahubli's in love with to be betrothed to him, but then that immediately goes sideways, which just makes their Devsana's and Bahubli's relationship stronger. So there's a ploy, but that ploy immediately develops the rest of the stuff, and we're not necessarily waiting for this thing to kick off.
Right.
Like you're watching Star Wars, and they say, but who will have these things? Who will control the Senate? If only someone would give emergency powers. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, and then 40 minutes later, we got Jar Jar in the Senate. I mean,
Yeah.
that took forever. I forgot this was happening.
right. But I mean, we've obviously jumped over a tremendous amount of stuff, and thank God.
Yes.
Because
I appreciate that.
we're only
I do want to kind of follow
the
the Queen Mother story a little bit, because that kind of.
In this one, she is being deceived by Bilal Deva and manipulated because when he does that whole thing with betroth me this wife, oh, but that woman's in love with Bahubali. Well, you're just going to do this to your only son, and fine, you'll get to be the king. And that's how they make up that, but he was counting on that. And that's the first time that I think we see in those movies her being successfully manipulated.
I think that might be right.
Yeah.
Devasana, but whatever. I don't know. I've heard her name pronounced several times, and it just didn't stick. I'm sorry.
I don't know if we saw the Telugu version or the Hindi version, but we're trying our best.
That's a good
guys.
question. I'm almost sure we saw the Telugu version, but I'm not entirely sure.
And I'm sure there are multiple translations.
But in any case, I mean, she's no shrinking violet herself, right? I mean, in the first place, when we see her, she's kicking ass,
Right.
and taking names.
Yeah.
And as that kind of progresses, we see her competing against, the I guess he's a prince. I don't remember his name. The coward who becomes the hero.
Kumara.
Sure, Kumar.
Yeah.
Why not Kumar? Harold and
Kumara Varma.
Mr. Varma.
So, she's competing against him in the boar hunt and would have won.
Right.
For Bahubali being
Cheater.
cheeky.
Cheeky.
He's a cheeky little monkey.
Let me just shoot your arrows out of the sky in a way that they ricochet into the boar. How does this?
Yeah, it's crazy. But
Trigonometry.
but she's tough when the queen tries to basically buy her.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, really?
Right.
Like, who do you think you're talking to? You may have the walls, but we're not. You can't just buy me like some harlot. Which calls to mind. You remember the old kind of story / joke with supposedly Winston Churchill
Yes.
at the story? Would you sleep with me for 100 pounds? No. Would you sleep with me for £1 million? Yes. Would you sleep with me for 200 pounds? Right? What do you think I am? We've already established that.
Right.
Right? So she's like, you can't buy me, not at any price, right? Not at the price of a kingdom, not at the millions of tons of gold. I'm not for sale.
Uh-huh.
And blah blah blah. She gets there, and then she finds out that what she thought was the case is not the case, and kind of is the case, right?
Yeah,
because she thought that Bahubali was to be her betrothed, and so she kind of changed her mind, and then she got there, and she's like, no, you're for this son, and she's like, hell to the no.
Right.
Right. In that moment, when she's there standing before the queen, she is literally surrounded by enemies in that moment, right? She didn't come in as an enemy, but as soon
But
as
she did come in chains.
as a captive,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because he had to capture her to bring her, because that was the queen's command.
Right.
So she is bottom of the totem
Right,
pole.
but
She
she's
has no
definitely,
political leverage.
as soon as she defied the queen, everybody in that courtroom, everybody within those walls is her enemy. And it didn't really evolve in this direction, but I've read enough stories of, the olden days in various countries, and the idea of giving your rivals or your enemy's family safety in your own walls is just holding them hostage.
Right.
She was absolutely in a position where she could be held hostage, she could be made a slave, but she still didn't back down, right? I mean, that's her her character.
Yeah.
But he ends up losing his position. Baahubali loses his position
As heir apparent to the throne,
As heir
he
apparent.
becomes, I don't know, captain of the guard.
whatever he
There's
becomes.
so many
I mean, he
captains of the
moves
guards.
out of the castle and he's basically, living on the
Right,
with
in the village.
with the rabble in the village, right? And he's doing the work of 100 men
Right.
Because he can't.
he just does what he can do. He does as much as he can do in whatever position he gets put in. And maybe it's because of the Marcus Aurelius exposure recently, right? But that's a very stoic, right?
For sure. I was actually even thinking of like the Joseph in Egypt story. Like
Right.
everywhere no matter what position he's put in, he's like doing the best he
He
can.
just excels.
Right.
He does the most that he can do.
Yeah.
It's an interesting sequence as he is making all of these machines to help the people
Right.
do the work. Because
Right.
that kind of,
Right.
I think that has some implications.
Right? Eat your heart out, Leonardo. Leonardo who? I don't know who that is.
Baahubali.
Now, honestly, I don't even know what year this is supposed to happen in.
Oh yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, at least in
I mean,
theory,
it feels very medieval, but that could have been
Right, but
1600s, 1700s.
this is supposed to be like a 10,000 year
Yeah.
old civilization, right?
Right.
And I mean, they had wheels. They knew, how to make chariots and
Right.
stuff. So it
No,
was
more than that. They got that chariot that shot spears like a machine gun.
well, right. They were the most
They had the
inventive
stuff.
Right.
stone.
still
Well, they
were-
weren't Stone Age. They were early Iron Age, maybe.
Yeah. Something like that.
But they were still mining by hand until Baahubali came down and said, "This
Right.
has got to
He's
change."
kind of right. He's the Prometheus, right? He brings
He is a
them.
Prometheus. Yeah.
He brings them knowledge. I don't know why my throat is itchy. Anyway,
Something in the water.
right, something in the water.
My fault.
So, they get pregnant, gonna have the baby, end up having the baby.
And while the baby is being birthed, that happens to be the moment when Katapa is killing Baahubali in the mud.
Right, and he still gets and takes the honor of being the first one to hold the baby. And he kind of redeems himself by taking part in the rescue of
Yeah.
the baby.
And as a nice character moment, gets Bahubali's blood on Shivgami's hands, just so that she knows exactly what's up.
Right. There was no way for her to avoid blood on her hands.
Yeah.
Which of course takes us back to the start of the movie, and that's how this woman who was queen ends up
Running
dying
for
in a river.
her life.
and then so yeah,
And that's when we finally catch up to
Shivadu, right? Now he knows who he is. He knows what happened.
he knows
Right.
that this woman that he saved is in fact his mother, and that his love interest was going to rescue his mother, and
Right.
that's what the whole
Right.
rebellion was about. So now that they know who he is, he has an army at his side to go take the kingdom.
Plus, he has Katapa, which is all he really needed.
That's all you need.
That dude, he's like the baddest of the bad.
He is.
He's a one-man army.
He's like the main guy in 300.
Leonidas?
Yeah, Leonidas.
Yeah.
Then they go to the kingdom, have a very interesting design for a telescope, but we won't get into that. Can't see anything. Light leak. Man, light leak.
And this is it is this assault on Mahishmati that is where we see the fantastic use of palm trees, right?
Yeah, that comes in the second thing, because the first one is a ground battle, and then they grab Devsena and bring her into the kingdom, lock all the walls, so now they need to get over
the wall.
everything
Walls, right?
to save Devsena again.
So, speaking of Leonidas, I mean, it's kind of a Spartan moment, right? Where they all get on the tree with their shields.
Yeah.
And each man protects the man to his left, I guess.
As it were.
As it were. But, that whole thing, there's no way around it. It's absurd.
And
it is so fun to watch.
It is fun,
right? All of these guys, it's like a Roadrunner cartoon. They all get on this palm tree that's been bent down to the ground with their shields. They cut the rope. It launches them bodily into the air, but they're like locked arm in arm or something because
they pull themselves
because
together into a grenade.
Right, pull themselves into basically so that their shield forms.
Like a barrel.
It's more like a barrel with no top or bottom, right? So they just sail as this barrel, and somehow inside this bubble, there's inertia is somebody else's problem,
right?
Right? They just sail over the wall, and because they're in this perfect form, they like land and bounce. And Indiana Jones is like, that's better than a fridge. I don't know.
And a subtle thing that I love about that attack is that they don't all make it. A lot of them land right where they need to, but some of them overshoot and just go flying past the wall. We don't see where they land.
That's true.
And then some of them just crash into the wall and fall on the outside. We don't see if they die.
Yeah. So things don't go perfect.
Which I think is so important because it feels like there's still a lot of...
it's real?
It feels like there's risk.
Real-ish?
It does, right.
Yeah, risk. That's good.
Right. There's
things can go wrong.
Consequences.
We're not sure that they're going to necessarily lose, but how much farther will they have to go to win?
Yeah.
So, ultimately they win.
After a very epic one-on-one fight between Baahubali and Baldeva, because they're both demigods. So when they actually clash, it really feels like they can do serious damage to each other.
Yeah, it is like a Thor versus
Hulk.
Yeah.
I don't remember, and maybe you do.
There's so many.
When Shivadu is finally fighting Baldeva, what bindi is he wearing? Does he still have a bindi or
Shivadu?
Shivadu.
Yeah, I think they both do.
What is on his? Because Baldeva,
Baldeva or Balaldeva.
He always has the sun, right? He's always got I'm assuming a rising sun.
Yeah.
Because the setting sun would be a little, I'm assuming he always has the rising sun. And Baahubali always has the crescent moon.
Okay.
Right? Which Shiva also is usually depicted with a crescent moon, like in his hair.
Okay.
So
these are things I didn't know.
Right, so there's Shiva again, right? Yep. But Shivadu, he's got something on his forehead in the village, and I don't know if it's like the lingam or it's not a clear mark of Shiva.
And in case you guys are confused and you haven't seen the movies, and we didn't make it clear, Shivadu is Baahubali Jr.
Right.
FYI.
So
they're played by the same guy, And it's very easy to call both of them Baahubali, but that would just be a mess.
I think I've read some people say that it's a conch shell on his forehead.
Okay.
Others said that maybe it's a serpent, or the Shiva Lingam.
Hey, if you know, say it in the comments.
Yeah, put it in the comments.
Put it in the comments.
I
We'd
was
like
just
to-
curious because obviously, if Baahubali was the moon,
Right.
right, the cool headedness, right, and his brother Balaldeva was the sun, the fiery, the hot tempered, right?
If we say enough pronunciations, one of them has to be right.
If his son was now fighting Balaldeva, I don't remember what mark was on his forehead, if any.
That'd be interesting. Yeah. So please let us know. I'd be very. Yeah.
And there's so much in the movie that, I mean, there's so much in the movie to see. There's so much that is wonderful. And, the story is basically, hey, this guy, he's raised in a station way lower than his destiny.
Right.
Right? He is Kal-El. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he went to live among the primitives.
Yep.
They weren't bad people, right? Martha and Clark Kent, the best people
Right.
that Earth had to offer.
Yeah.
But they weren't as good as Kal-El, right? So the Shivadu, he has to go and he has to find out who his father was. He has to learn his heritage and he has to take it back. And in doing so, he saves his mom. He saves the whole kingdom. Everybody loves him. And that, that's big story, right? But on the way, he meets what was the name of the woman again?
Avantika?
Yes. Avantika.
Avantika.
He meets Avantika, and there's a whole thing with them, right? And this kind of courtship.
Very interesting.
You'd never see anything like that in Hollywood.
No way.
Today.
Right.
Right? Never in a million years, right? Because, well, he pretty much always has the upper hand, right? He's always getting the better of her. And as anybody who's seen a Hollywood movie made in the last 15 years knows, no male character can ever be even playfully, like, getting the better of a woman who is currently not interested, right? I mean, it used to be like the main thing, right? The woman keeps saying no and resisting, and then you win. But that's, you can't do that in America, but in a country that still prizes femininity, and none of these women are weak. Would even the most radical left-wing feminazi crazy.
I think
say that these
if you're
women
a
are
feminist, you could watch this and legitimately go, these are like heroes of our,
Absolutely, they are heroic women, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, there's this whole courtship thing that is it's like nothing I've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
And the tattoo thing or whatever it is.
Yeah,
that's such a weird. That guy's got great spatial awareness to figure out those patterns.
Well, that's just one of his many divine gifts.
Yes.
I do this and then I hug you.
Right. I mean, the symbolism is subtle as a brick. And that.
Yeah.
But it's great, and then she has to choose between, we thought you were with us and we have this thing, and then it turns out, of course, that her whole quest
is
really about him.
Yeah.
And you're right. So, there's that whole thing, and then the character of his mother. And there's so much, and like I said before, and I'll probably say a million times more in my lifetime, every frame is beautiful, visually beautiful. The music is beautiful. The characters are interesting.
Yeah.
And heroic.
Yeah.
The heroes are heroic. And once again, stepping back a little bit to throw bricks at Hollywood, because they deserve a few
more bricks.
Bricks. Like, in the beginning, God created Iron Man. And Iron Man was without form and void. No, he was. Well, to be fair, the script was without form and void.
We're getting
But
really good
that's-
metaphors here.
That's getting a little too deep. But Iron Man, the reason it kicked off what we now call the Marvel Universe, right, which has become the MCU, is because he was kind of this guy, kind of this, not a very maybe good guy,
Right.
maybe,
He wasn't wholesome. He was.
but like he used his skills, right, his brains and his hands, and the first thing he did was he used it to save himself, and then he continued to use his brain and his hands to make tools, which ultimately, benefited others. Right. It all culminated in, the defense of Earth or whatever. And so the heroes were allowed to be heroes. I personally didn't care for the Thor movie. But that movie, Thor learned what it was to be a hero.
Right.
I very much enjoyed the Captain America movie, which was about a guy who always was a hero who was finally given the strength to accomplish what was always in his soul.
Right.
So that's really, I think, the reason that the MCU was able to take off the way that it did, and it's become a whole thing, right? It's created, like, DC literally fell all over itself trying to emulate
Yeah.
the MCU at the time. Failed miserably, except for one movie, in my humble opinion, right, which was the first Wonder Woman movie.
Right.
Which,
She knows what the right thing
I
to do
couldn't
is,
care
and
less
just does it.
right, she was a hero. She was born to be a hero. She was trained to be a hero. And everybody who tried to stop her from being a hero, she was just like, just stop.
Right.
Just get out of my way, right? She just ignored them or she pushed them aside. And one of my favorite moments in movie history, at least from the last 20 years, is when Diana, right? Princess Diana, a.k.a. Wonder Woman, is like, I've had enough of this. She steps up out of the foxhole and just marches on the Kaiser's army, right?
Right.
Just, this is what I'm born to do. This is what I'm going to do. I love that moment, right? And we don't get too many of those. We don't get any of those now in the Marvel movies, right?
No.
All of the Marvel male heroes have literally been made into jokes, right?
Right.
Somebody to make fun of, someone to mock.
And the female characters can't have moments of weakness or
They
failure.
never make a mistake. They never fail. But
People
they're
are
also
holding them
unlikable,
back,
and,
but
and
it's-
nobody likes them. Nobody
Right.
cares. And the only thing left in Marvel, I think, where that's maybe not still the case, was Guardians of the Galaxy,
yeah.
which is why Guardians 3 did pretty well in spite of a lot of really disturbing imagery of torturing animals, right? Vivisection and experiments and whatnot.
But the heart was there.
The heart was still there, right? And there were still heroic moments and heroic people. But all of that was to say, in Baahubali, the hero gets to be the hero, right? He gets to act like a hero. He doesn't step on people to get there. He doesn't put anybody down to
Right.
get there. In fact,
He lifts people.
Baahubali himself lifts people up. And I can't think of any specific examples of his son doing that. I wish to believe that that's how he lived the rest of his life, that he raised that whole kingdom up.
Yeah.
Because Baahubali and Kumara's life was changed, and in the end, Kumara did die trying to, achieve justice for the betrayal against Baahubali, because Bilal Deva tricked him into doing these things, and then when he realized that he had been tricked, he tried to the last possible moment to kill Bilal Deva, because he so believed in the goodness of Baahubali that he has to save him. Baahubali doesn't know what's coming, and he has to do the right thing in this moment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Great
there's a lot of
character arc.
admirable heroes. There's a lot of admirable heroics. The bad guys are not. And so let's go back to Wonder Woman for a second. The worst part of Wonder Woman was the bad guy.
Yeah.
Not only was he physically non-threatening,
Right.
like I will never believe that cheese-eating mustache dude is the friggin' Ares, god of war.
Right.
They called him Ares in that one, right? Because they stick with the Greek.
Yeah.
That. So, I would never believe it. It devolved into just basically a CGI slugfest. Nobody was really intelligent.
Diana couldn't have anything. She had nothing that could hurt Ares, and then we couldn't see Ares hurting her. So
She should have
we're just
outsmarted him.
throwing tanks at each other while saying, "I will destroy you."
Yeah.
And then not destroying her.
So that was no bueno.
Right.
But the bad guys in this movie, they're not only strong, right? They're physically intimidating, but they're smart. They're
Yes.
crafty. They're determined. They're
vicious.
vile. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
They-
their plans come about because they need to trick somebody into doing something.
Right. And what's the we decided we don't know how to pronounce the name of
the cripple.
The cripple.
BJJ,
cripple, which I'm just going to go out and
Vajada.
say whoever I'm almost sure that arm is practical, right?
sometimes, yeah, it's definitely practical sometimes, but sometimes they're doing a great job at erasing this real arm.
Whoever
It's
did that arm,
good.
like they deserve whatever is the equivalent of an Oscar in India for makeup. That is a good arm. Like I had to look it up. Like, did they find a dude? India's got 1 billion people. You can find a dude who's got an arm and can act, right? I know you can. There's just too many people not to be able to find whatever.
Right.
But that's just great, right? But there's a moment where like he just straight up punches a marble wall and yeah, call him and just tears a chunk out of it. Like this dude is not weak.
Right.
He's got a bad arm
Right.
and he's got a bad soul. But he's
That's not holding him back.
He's not weak.
Yeah.
Not at all, man. I mean, he could like crush a normal man with one arm, and that's So,
Well-
the bad guys are bad, which I think makes the heroes more heroic.
Yep. And the villagers are good. Like there's a good reason to want to save the kingdom and save the village and save the people. Like the people are they're not. You're rooting for these people.
Right. Right. They're not corrupt people. They're oppressed people.
Right.
They're everyday people. They're what the most of humanity has been for as long as we have had people who chose to rule over others.
Right.
Right. And that hasn't obviously been all of humanity, but it's been a fair chunk
It's a
of it.
fair
Right?
chunk of it.
People who were raised up by strength of arm or strength of character to protect people who called them whatever,
Right.
chieftain, king, emperor, whatever that was. But most of the people in the universe are just people. They're just trying to do their job. They're trying to take care of their families, and that's what these people are, right? They're living in the shadow of the palace.
Right.
And maybe in the past that has represented a protective force.
But at that time, it definitely was not.
Right. At that time, it was definitely not. That guy definitely... How do you think he paid for that golden statue?
Right.
I'm just saying. I think there might have been taxes involved. I'm just guessing.
I think you're right.
And I'm guessing that they were exorbitant. Right?
I'm sure that's
the
true.
people...
That's a big old statue.
Right.
And there's lots of expenses in the court, not
Sure.
just the statue.
Well, and then to your point, the mining, right? Whatever they were mining, I don't even remember. Maybe it was gold. I don't know. But I mean, those people maybe didn't have a choice.
Right.
right?
I remember Mahishmati was introduced while a song was playing about how it's such a great place to live and everybody's happy and, meanwhile, showing the effects of the rule because juxtaposition is fun.
Right.
Well, I think we have given everybody sufficient reason to watch this movie.
I hope so.
I'm going to say that S better. Sufficient reason. No, I want to see it again now after. And we have again, Iga.
Iga.
We're going to do.
Iga's on Amazon.
Iga's on
I don't
Amazon.
know where you can see Baahubali.
Netflix, Baahubali. Check out Netflix on Baahubali. Check out Netflix on Baahubali.
That's right. Check out Netflix on Baahubali.
The
Coming
best
soon.
streaming service you'll ever pick.
Right.
The most epic.
Baahubali streaming, baby.
You've got one story, 2 movies.
You know what I don't know? I don't know if Baahubali means something.
Oh. In the comments, let us know.
I mean, I know it's a name, right?
Yeah.
But
Please share your observations with us.
Yeah.
all of us have names, and all of our names have
mean
meanings.
something.
So
That'd be interesting to know.
I think, and I didn't look it up, but just because the character, they call him Shivadu, I have to believe that that's like child of Shiva, or maybe even gift
Right.
from Shiva. I didn't look it up, have no idea, but that's something that people who speak Telugu or Hindi can probably, or any of the 147 other languages within
30 miles.
a 30-minute walk of where that place was filmed.
Yeah.
That movie was filmed.
Great
Anyway.
movie. Great movie.
Great movie,
movie.
wonderful movie. We should talk about Iga sometime.
What was the other one that we just saw?
Siddharadam.
Yeah.
I think I got that in the right order. Siddharadam.
Yeah.
A lot of symbolism in that movie too. But,
Good stuff.
Yeah.
You are listening to And If Love Remains.
First of 23 installments requested by Dr. Levitt. Trying to be in compliance here because we're taking him and that whole organization down.